Rog, I'm happy. I'm in La Rochelle. This is your hometown now, right? This is it, forever.
It reminds me a lot of Munster, where we were 20 years ago, more, is it? When did I start? 2000 maybe, yeah.
You mean underdeveloped when you say that?
A start of a dream, in the fact that you have supporters, you've got a good team, you've got your identity, you have something to play for. So we just need to be good at rugby, which is easy, I think, once you have full house every week. I suppose, yeah, the last 24 months have been a dream, but before that it takes a little bit of perseverance. There was many a point where I felt it was dead, it was over, this is never going to take off. I'm disconnected from what their ambitions are, what my ambitions are. I think once you establish what you got as a person, you can do rugby afterwards. I think other coaches maybe go at it the other way around. For me, I'm really happy and proud to say we don't have a dickhead in our group here of 40 people. That's a fair achievement, you know. And there's difference between can you keep them all happy? No, you can't. But as long as you give them something to work with and something to give them a glimmer of hope and feel belonging here, it has become powerful. And now, is that down to me? No, it's down to the players, you know. I think my philosophy will be to empower people and let them take it where they want to. Once you have good people and good players, all great teams, I think, are driven by the players, not by the management team.
I say it with a wry smile now, because the clips that we saw on social media of you taking the meetings in French, but with your Irish edge and energy, it takes a lot to get to that point, I imagine, you know, like, as in how you can motivate a group like that. And it was very endearing, is what I'm saying, as well. It's quite funny as well.
Yeah, of course, but I think there's a very serious point within the point, in the fact that we're in France. It would be, I'll give you an example, it would be like two French coaches, Laurent Labitte or Laurent Travers, going to coach Munster, and the sessions are in French. It just doesn't work, Jim. As we say, we don't really speak English or French, we speak rugby. And as you can see from my video clips, you don't really have to be fluent in French or strong in it, but what you need to be strong in is no mixed messages. Have we confirmed how we want to play the game and what we stand for? And once we have those kind of established, our values established, we can just play. I think it's a very rewarding thing that I do. I don't work, I make that point, I don't work, I coach rugby, because you'd have better mentality, mindset from what I'm going to say next. We've got guys here who think, you know what I mean, Teddy Thomas is a great guy, but Teddy Thomas thinks he's Thierry Henry, you know, he's here to score tries. There's no defence in rugby, it's just score tries, you know. You're trying to get the best out of him on both sides. You have him who can run 37 kilometres an hour, where you have Winnie Antonio, who's great on the ball, you have Will Skelton, they love a little bit of KFC, king-size buckets, but that makes them tick, you know. Don't rule it out, just work with them. But understanding your player, you know, I have a player, Redawardi, great, Montpellier, with a Muslim background, so he does Ramadan, and a lot of coaches would go, well, you can't do that when you're here, you know, but if that's what he stands for, if that's what he believes in, work with him. That's so important for me, that he's able to be himself here. On game day, he eats, but like, to be able to do that, it's still a good mental test for me, for a guy who has beliefs and he's knows what he stands for. I suppose what I'm trying to say to you here is that it's not just a rugby team. There's very powerful connections with people that I really care for now. You know, I think I've come across a very, very special group.
Roger, a little bit of housekeeping, if I may. I know it's come out that you text Johnny Sexton. I know it's a thing at the minute.
Yeah, it is
through gritted teeth? You're right about it.
It couldn't be the opposite in terms of what has happened since I hung up the boots has just taken my, I suppose, level of inner contentment to a whole new level. I respect the fact that someone who's very serious, who works hard, gets a huge reward. It is an individual achievement, but at the same time, it's a fantastic thing he has achieved. And of course, if you're a competitor, you'd love to be it. Otherwise, you'd be a bullshitter, you know.
I know the answer to this, but just for the masses, do you get on? Because there's been history when you look at stuff that's happened on the pitch and the afters.
It's been a love-hate, hate-love, hate-love. Probably at the minute it's hate, if that's the right way, because we've chatted this through, because, you know what I mean, 2 into 1 doesn't go. La Rochelle and Leinster don't go. So, like...
La Rochelle and Leinster, or Leinster and Munster?
No, because, that was obviously... No, it was well made up after that. There was Ireland careers together, there was... and sure, I coached him in racing. That's a coach-player relationship. That's very different, obviously, but... No, there's so many different layers to Johnny, but there's a really good soul there. And I'd like to think the same, but sometimes perception isn't reality with the two of them, because you're essentially responsible for your team when you're the 10, the boss and the goal kicker. In his case, the captain, you know, you're trying to drive the team. So what has happened in the last few seasons has been the fact that we've come across them. So he's trying to drive his team, I'm trying to drive my team. So it's pretty fake if you're thinking everything's going to be rosy. You know, this is European Cups we're talking about. This means an awful lot to an awful lot of people. There's going to be, without even anything controversial, a difference in opinion on how you see things, and I'm trying to mess him up. He's trying to mess my team up. If you have two strong minds, it's not gonna be a period where you're going to get on. But I think the most important thing, there will be huge respect there. You can park that and hopefully revisit it, because you'd appreciate it that once you kind of come out of that environment, or your ball of stress and competitiveness, there's a whole new world out there, and there'll be many years afterwards where you'll be able to have a vin rouge and a nice bit of fromage and chat through how crazy we were at that period.
Do you think Ireland can do it?
Yeah, I do think they can. I think the key for Ireland is what's their injury profile going to be like in 3 or 4 games time, and how do they excel in the discipline stakes, how they manage cards.
Like, obviously you care for the team, the players and everyone that's involved because you wore the jersey before.
Yes.
Are you desperate for them to win the World Cup? Hard question, eh?
Very hard, because of the fact that you got to remember what's ingrained in my brain at the minute is how to beat Leinster. That's the only thing I really care about. Do you get me? That's what my appetite is. That's what's occupying my thoughts from a selfish point of view. That's my team. I can't really be concerned with Ireland, with France, with any other thing. There's so much involved in coaching a club team and trying to get the best out of them, that, especially with the opposition, you know what I mean? Most of the Leinster team are the Irish team. Am I desperate to see Ireland win it? No,
you're a fan.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Just like they've given me, because you don't be fooled either. You're the biggest thrill in life is playing for your country. You know, the club game is brilliant, but there's another level, and it's so much harder, and it's the depth of pride is bigger with your country. So, you mean, Paul O'Connell is a good friend. It would be unbelievable to watch someone that you really like lift the Rugby World Cup. You know, Ireland have never done it. But it's becoming more and more attainable, and I think this group, more importantly, see themselves, because if you don't see it before it happens, you won't do it. I think that's very important, because people think sometimes, you know what I mean, that it's decided by the 80 minutes. I'm not too sure. I think from a mental point of view, I think a lot of players nowadays and coaches prepare and can nearly show the players this is what will happen if you do A, B and C, and if you do that, then you'll get the performance. If you get the performance, you lift the William Abellis.
The reason why I asked the question, and people will be thinking, well, it sounds ridiculous, does Roger support Ireland? Because the reason I ask it feels like you're next in line. You don't need to tell me if you are, but it feels like the natural succession would be for Ronan O'Gara to go on and coach Ireland. If they win the World Cup with Andy Farrell, the Englishman, albeit a legend, it's a hard act to follow, right? I'm not saying that he leaves after that.
Exactly, and that's a great question, because it's a proper question with a natural. There's no doubt that would definitely have consequences. There's no, because you want to be the first coach, you want to be the guy involved, but sometimes life doesn't work like that, and maybe if you look upon it from the Crusaders' kind of, I suppose, point of view, it's more difficult to retain or win it again, or in their case, win it 6 times. But it depends how you shape your mindset and how you see the world, in terms of, would it just be a one-off for Ireland, or can you create a dynasty? Now we're getting a bit deep and carried away with ourselves, but that's what happens between the second row and an out half and a stroll in La Rochelle. But why not? Why can't you dream? Because once you have that vision, you can do it. But if there's 1 or 2 weak links, the boat will sink.
And there's a few stumbling blocks along the way. South Africa, first up, who probably, you could say, from what we've seen so far, and this is because we haven't seen a huge amount of Ireland in the World Cup, they probably look the best, I'd say, the most physical team to play.
Every team has a weakness, and then they ask, well, what does the head coach bring, and what do the assistant coaches bring? They bring a capacity to see weaknesses in the opposition that can be exploited, and there was opportunities for Scotland that weren't taken in that game, and that there was opportunities for Tonga against Ireland that weren't taken by Tonga. So every team has this weakness. The game at the weekend, which a lot of people I think are getting carried away, it's not fatal. The two quarterfinals are fatal. If they beat South Africa, if they beat Scotland, confidence will be absolutely sky high, and then they will be all in on a quarter-final, but the quarter-final history suggests one-way traffic against Ireland. So that's, even though they have mechanisms for coping with that and addressing with that nowadays, there'll still come a point after 50 or 60 minutes in that game where you either kick on or you succumb to doubt. I think I read during the week, Ireland have won 27 of the last 29 test games. It's an astounding record in this day and age. It's
against the best as well.
Yeah, you have to stop and pause and let that digest for a minute. That's an away tour in New Zealand. It's phenomenal body of work that they've gone through.
Right, you can give me everything here or give me nothing at all. But unlocking the South Africa defence, I look at it from a very superficial, but it's quite an obvious point of view. The rush, the speed that Peter Steph comes up on the outside. We saw what he did to Finn Russell. He was on the floor all the time. Any advice for Sexton? What would you be talking about? Because there's an edge there, and people are like, what's the edge? There's space on the outside, but it's easier said than done.
To beat a rush defence, you got to go through it. An awful lot of people try and go around it, so there's a complete, I think, misunderstanding of what you're trying to achieve. If you want to, for me, the key on playing against a rush defence is you got to attack flailing arms, and that's a skill in itself, because if you run into bodies, you're tackle behind the gain line, and the ball is going to be held up. Ruck speed will be 4 or 5 seconds. But if you can identify opportunities for late footwork at the line into flailing arms, the capacity for high shots, which is nowadays a red card or a yellow card on a probably an average occasion, footwork and fend at the line, short passes. Everyone tries to play long pass. If you play long pass against South Africa, they'll eat you up with salt. It's exactly what they're looking for. So what you need to do, reduce the space between your 9 and 10, or first receiver, reduce your space from, so do you get me? So 9 and 10 might only take 3 South Africans. 10 to this next defender, next attacker might only take 3 defenders. They'll probably have 8 on the line. But you got to know, if you can get accuracy on that second pass, So 9 to 10, we'll say. 10 to Bundyaki or Ringrose, and if there's a potential, what will happen there, the shooter will come on him. He will not get the capacity to go 1-2 long pass. What he might do, he might get hit ball and all, but he might be able to tip.
And I'm going through from the halfway line.
Or even better, if you imagine I'm here, you're there, who's behind here? James Lowe or Hansen, they're gone. But do you get me? Because we've tried to go through them here, we've taken 7 defenders. That's my theory on it.
But that's where Ireland are the very best in the world in that space,
in
especially
the
with the forwards in the phase game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
This comes down to, like, when I've watched Ireland and I watch South Africa, they are so well matched because they are very similar but so different in terms of how they go about their work. And the question for me comes, is it going to be about who has the biggest balls? Because if it is that, I don't think Ireland win it. But if there is
no, but I don't think Ireland will even entertain that. I think, because I'm biased, but you see the excellence of Paul O'Connell in terms of whatever day it is, 1 to 10 wins your World Cup. For me, I'm absolutely convinced. You don't need a 15-man game. You need your 1 to 10 humming, and then everything else is a bonus. But what Ireland are doing extremely well at the minute is that you have, for example, Keller here, Porter here, Furlong here, all threats, all capable of playing the ball. James Ryan or McCarthy or Henderson, O'Mahony, Van der Fleer, Doris. Their skills are very, I think, underappreciated, because if they were probably in an All Black jersey, we'd be all. But that, for me, is something I think doesn't get the recognition it deserves. They're all good decision makers, as opposed to just having your 10 and 12 as decision makers. Because Ireland, as you see with their phase game, it's very rare they score in the corner. We're going through teams now, and it's impressive to watch.
Rassie Erasmus, I'm a big fan of his. I love the way that he goes about it.
I don't know him at all, because I was gone from Munster.
I know. I'll read some funny comments from Chasing the Sun documentary, which actually I loved. I love the emotional part of the game. So in the build-up to the semi-final against Wales, you might have heard these lines, but this is what he said. So he said that Wales, they're not softies. They're not like Ireland. He said they're not like England, who go away. They're tough fuckers, which is basically saying, this is 4 years ago, right? That Ireland aren't any of them things, that they're soft, that they're not tough, and that they effectively go away at some point. It's different now, eh?
Yeah, but come on, give the coach a break a bit too. Like, he's motivating for a match that he's hot favourites. He's trying to get a reaction, stir up his boys. He's probably gone in and he's talking on instinct, and it's come out recorded. You know what I mean? I think if anyone is to dig back, and that's what journalists and people who work in this game are very good at, you're always on record or what you say. But like, for me, that's important too, that at least if you're going to say something, you got to be honest about it, and you have to be consistent in what you say. But I think he's looking for me there as a coach straight away. You're kind of going, no, he wants to fire up his boys here to go, all right, well, how do I get these boys on alert to go that Wales are potentially a banana skin here, that they imagine tripping up in a World Cup semi-final to Wales.
They nearly did. Well,
you know.
Ireland win this weekend, South Africa finish second, Ireland play New Zealand in the quarterfinals. Is that a better pathway, or does it not matter? It's hard asking a coach this, because no? You're
spot on, it hugely matters. My one strong point in this World Cup is avoid France. I think I'm pretty well placed to comment on them and understand them, and you got a taste of it on opening night, where they were bang average for 40 minutes, and then they have this capacity to take, I think, their game to a level no one else has. That's a strong thing to say, but I don't think you underestimate, and I certainly don't, but there's no one in any team like Dupont. For me, he's 10 points to France every game. He's too good. I've analysed him in depth, but you try to understand and coach how you can limit him, but he becomes such an enigma, is it? An anomaly?
Yeah,
when
both.
He doesn't have the ball. And you're like, well, what are you saying, Raj? You know what I mean? But so, for example, the opposition have the ball and they're going, and then suddenly there's a knock on or there's a slap of a hand and ball bounces, and then it's like he's like a magnet, and then he has the freakish strength of a front row and back row. He has the fend of a centre, and he has the speed of a winger, and he has the smarts of a 10, and he's gone. You know, that's where he does stuff that sometimes, you know what I mean? I absolutely, I hate him obviously because he's from Toulouse and he's so good and he's caused me a lot of hurt, but I admire everything in this rugby player. He's beyond the freak for me. He is...
So he's key to France. If he wasn't playing, you'd be obviously naturally less worried as teams, but he is the one, isn't he? He is the one.
He would deflate a nation. He's Zidane for this team.
Fiji are everyone's second team in this World Cup. They look phenomenal. You know about one of them in particular. You know about a few in Levani Botia. I have never seen a team so well prepared, a Fiji team so well prepared like I have now. They look
but you
frightening.
Just take it back a week and I was so disappointed with their performance against Wales. It was just their hold the ball. They couldn't hold the ball, you know, because if they hold the ball, they're such specimens. Like they've got the opposition are hoping they come up with errors. If they just eliminate that, I think they'll get to the semi-finals.
What is it about them, Rog? So you're coaching Levani Botia here, because we're talking about ungodly-like powers. Is it that, or are we kind of over-egging it a little bit?
No, you're not. Honestly, like, when I'm retired, the only guy I'm fearful of when I'm reffing is Botia, because he won't change his line and he'll apologise when I'm on the ground dead. So he has a head that is harder than any concrete ball. Oh Jesus, just stay away from them. They are beyond chiselled. Their capacity to get in shape, genetics, is just so unfair. I'm looking at this miserable, scrawny white guy, and he's like just ring and no, but that's exactly on the outside. You know what I mean? But you strip back the layers. What pleasant company he is, you know. And I think such deep people with deep meaning. You have to understand their why, and once you understand them, the minute you go to Fiji, you'll see the world differently. Go there and it'll change your mind, because I was there, he's 3 days late. I said, if you've any idea, if he's home within 2 weeks late, you're fucking on to a good thing. Because, like, oh, no hurry, Fiji time. They're so pleasant, they're so loving, it's so warm. They are a bit up in the air about, like, the flight may get cancelled, but, like, just, well, for me anyway, the greatest learning I have is understand what their context is, and then mix our culture with theirs, and you get a bit of a winning recipe. But, like, oh God, yeah, I know for the rest of my life, when I go to Fiji, Botia will open the house for 7 people, put mattresses or whatever. That's the relationship I have, because I think when you give, they give 10 times more. When you give, they give 10 times more. It's very powerful. And yeah, my wife will be friendly with Emily, his wife. The kids are in school together. He runs a lot faster than my kids. But
that's not a reflection on you.
Such warmth and beauty in a lot of people that came from very little and now don't have possessions but have a warm heart. It's why we live, I think, you know, but sometimes underappreciated. None of this PlayStation 5, none of this whatever. Give them a ball and they'll smile. His 2 girls are beautiful. His son, yeah, I'm so lucky to have crossed his path. It means a lot to me, because you know what I mean? How do you go about beating teams? You put Botia on the team. He's the one player in the world that gets a complete freebie in terms of this clarity session. What's my role? I said, don't worry what your role is. Let's tackle and run. Tackle, run.
Class. So good.